Welcome to the Live Life Well podcast for busy women. As a busy mum myself, I understand how hard it can be to look after ourselves. But hopefully this is a space for you to take time out, find connection, and get some simple takeaways to live life well, mind, body and soul. Let's jump in. Welcome to this episode of the Live Life Well podcast for busy women. And our hope really is this is just a lovely moment for you to slow down and listen and encourage yourself and build yourself up with some simple takeaways that you can apply to start living life to the full, just like you deserve to do in your busy life. And this is also our monthly guest episode. And I'm very excited to welcome our guest today, who is Beccy Calderwood from the Life Project. And Beccy, you do all the things that we love here. So you're a life coach, you're a speaker, you're a yoga teacher, you're a breathwork and meditation teacher. So I don't know how you fit all that in and still be so calm and grounded. You must be doing something right. So is there anything I've missed out? Tell us a bit about you and how you came to be doing this work and what it is you kind of love about it.
Yeah, so I actually started my career working in marketing. So I was senior leader in marketing agencies, working on like global brands for 20 years. And the reality of that is that it was really busy. It was very hectic. I burnt out a number of times. And I think I just got to the point that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want to constantly be on the go and feeling tired. And so I decided to make a shift. And I wanted to make a shift into a space that could actually help people maybe avoid some of the things that I'd started to experience. And that sort of led me on a little bit of a journey. So I retrained as a coach with that as the sole purpose of going in and working with people in businesses, just to help them understand themselves a little bit better, to find ways of well-being, to build boundaries, resilience, all of those things. But my journey has then kind of helped me evolve as well, because not only was I trying to help other people do that, I had to look at some of the behaviours that I had and how I did that. And that led me on to the yoga side of things and the well-being, because everyone that I was working with, everyone that I was coaching was so highly stressed that when you have those levels of stress, it stops you thinking straight. It stops you being able to make the decisions. And I just truly believe that everyone knows what's right for them inside, but we just have layers and layers of things that happen in life that stop us connecting with that. So that's how I came to do what I do. And now it's very much about, I talk about people development done differently, because I don't think there is a one size fits all approach to this. There are loads of frameworks and things out there, but I don't think they work for everyone. And so what I like to do is understand what's right for that business or what's right for that person, and then bring a mixture of everything into it. And that might be, we get to play with Lego, or we get to build models as we're talking about it, because that helps us think differently. Or it might be that we sit and we do some breath work and we calm down and then approach it. So it's anything that is to do with helping people develop themselves, understand themselves, or feel better about themselves. That all fits into what I do.
Oh, that's so good. So you've really been on that journey yourself, and now you have used that to help yourself and help other people too. And I love the individual approach you use. Like, I love that you use Lego on one hand, and then like breath work and meditation on the other hand, and how one thing might work for one person, one thing might work for another. That's so important, isn't it, on our journey? Like we were chatting earlier, to figure out like who we are and what works for us. And you're so right. So many of us are just in fight or flight stress response all the time with modern life, aren't we? And like, I help people with nutrition, and I always say you could eat perfectly, but if you're highly stressed all the time, you're just not going to be absorbing all the gorgeous nutrients. And I guess it's similar with self-care. We can't kind of stick a plaster on top of the stress, do we? We have to kind of deal with that first.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned from my journey, that I had to get honest with myself about the behaviours that I had that were causing me to be burnt out. So it's really easy, I think, in these situations that we blame a toxic workplace, and there are definitely toxic workplaces and they definitely affect you. But if I'm not willing to have the boundaries and to speak up and to put my boundaries in place and say no, then I'm kind of allowing that, and I'm keeping myself stuck in that cycle as well. So I think the first thing for me was actually recognizing that, and then making changes to move into kind of a different space where I had the space to then learn about myself and build better boundaries and put them in place and be okay with that as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a journey, isn't it? And I think we can get almost addicted to that stress cycle or that anxiety feeling, can't we? And almost get comfortable with the uncomfortable until we realize there's a better way that feels much better if we can learn to slow down and take care of ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point you made there, like that. You do get addicted to it because you don't know or you can't remember another time when it was like that. And sometimes we mistake that stress of being, oh, well, I'm good at my job. People think I'm good at my job. And we get praised for productivity or how much we can do or how much we can take on. And, you know, I used to say I'm one of the most resilient people I know. Like that was a great thing. And it's good to have resilience, but it was only because I'd put myself in so many situations that I had to be resilient. And actually looking back, I'd rather I wasn't as resilient, because I'd rather I hadn't put myself in those situations and gone through such stressful times.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to be so tough all the time, shouldn't we? We shouldn't have to like wear our armor all the time. Like, there's different kinds of resilience, isn't there? And I guess there's a kind of softer resilience, like an inner strength that if we build that, then we can cope much better with whatever life throws. And we can't always change the situations, can we? But we can change how we learn to deal with them. And I think we're both really passionate about supporting women to remember how good they can feel with simple habits and changes. Like we almost forget, we get used to living a certain way when there is like another way.
Yeah, and I think it's always, or it was for me, the first things that were to go when I was busy were the things that actually made me feel good. So I wouldn't plan my meals, I'd grab lunch, or I'd miss lunch, or I'd get home late, so it'd be a takeaway, or you'd just grab something, or I'd have a gym class or a yoga class and I'd miss that. And it was all the things that I know would have actually helped me, but at the time felt like they were getting in the way. And then that becomes that habit that you prioritize work, or you prioritize the things that you have to do over the things that are actually not just going to make you feel good, but they build you up in a way that you can actually do those things better, that you're in a better place to be able to deal with all of that comes in. So it's this really weird sort of false narrative that we tell ourselves, and you end up in this vicious circle of not doing the things that are going to build these strong foundations to deal with the busy lives that we have.
Absolutely. It's always the simple things that go, but they're the things that make the most difference, aren't they?
Yeah.
If we can get those in place first and be a bit proactive, it just makes everything else work a bit better, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's how I like to talk about it now, is like, what are the, it's not about resilience, but what are the foundations that make us feel good? We've got to have all of those foundations, because you can, and I see it as, I always talk about it as building a wall. Like you can take a brick out and that wall will still stand, but as you start to take more bricks out, that wall's going to fall. So what are your foundations that you have got that every day it means that, you're coming from a stronger place, and if one goes, that's okay, because you've got the others to hold you up, but you're not letting 2 and 3 and 4 go, and then go consistently as well.
Yeah, I just had a picture of Jenga. It's like, as busy women, we start like taking the bricks out and think, oh, I'll be fine, I'll keep going. And then it gets to a point where it all crashes down. We've taken too much away. We've not left.
Hanging on and it's wobbling. And you just do one more thing.
Yeah, we're fine, honestly. We're crumbling. Yeah, that's a great illustration. So talking about those foundations, so you've been on this amazing journey from sort of corporate burnout to learning how to look after yourself well, to helping other people do that. What are those foundations for you then right now where you're at? What does living life well mean to you? And what are the things that help you do that in the season that you're in?
So it's interesting. When we talked about living life well, I was thinking, what does it mean to me? And it's actually really simple. It's kind of a feeling to me. I know when everything just feels right for me. And I know that sounds really, really simple, but there's a bit of a balance. And I don't believe balance is something that, we have these perfect days every day, but it feels like I've got a handle on everything that's going in my life. I know for me, if I do nothing, I crave doing more. If I'm doing too much, I crave doing nothing. And it's like, how do I get that all in balance? And it's never ever perfect. But it's about having the things that I want in my life and having them in a way that they don't cause me too much stress. So every day I've got a purpose to my day, and that might be, something for me, or it might be some work. The work that I do, that I feel excited about doing that work and I enjoy doing that work. The food that I'm eating is the food that I really want to be eating and I love, and it makes me feel good, and I put effort into it. It's all of those things that they just sit with the things that are important to me. One of the things that I did on my journey, which really did start to shift my mindset, and it actually explained a lot from kind of, if I was looking back over my previous career, was the first thing I had to do was get to grips with my own personal values. And I think people talk about it a lot more now. But I never really looked at it. So I'd worked in marketing. I always looked at a brand's values and a brand's behaviors, but I never thought about my own values. And we did this within some of my training as a coach. And it was I think it was one of the best things that I did on that course, because it just suddenly made everything make sense. And I came out with 2 values that I've got more than 2, but the 2 values that I always think about and I know are opposing are the freedom and security. They're really important to me because they explained why I struggled to stay in jobs that were 9 to 5. I like to have a bit more freedom. So I worked best when I had that freedom to kind of come and go as I wanted or as I needed. I always worked hard. That was never in question. But the 9 to 5 never worked for me. And that used to kind of cause me stress. If I had that freedom to go and do and try different things, and it probably is why I do so much now. But then the security part of it feels like it kind of jars with it. But for me, it was understanding, how do I get the balance of those 2 things so that I have that security, that financial security, that I have the security of, I have a home that I can go back to and a place to be. And security can sometimes be the people that you surround yourself with, your family, your friends, like my husband. And so for me, it's working in those 2 values that I think is when I feel like I'm sort of living in a flow state, that I've got enough that grounds me, but I've got enough freedom to go and do and explore and try as well.
Yeah, I totally get it. It sounds like, first of all, having an idea of what your values are is such a helpful signpost in life, isn't it? And it does allow you that kind of wisdom to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. So you can have that balance of the things that are joyful and exciting, but then time to rest, because you can have too much of a good thing, can't you? I mean, the sort of work we do, there's always lots of opportunities, but if we said yes to them all, we wouldn't have the balance of our downtime. Yeah. So it is getting, like, knowing ourselves, like you talk about loads about what are those things that give you life, but then having the balance of the things that don't just feel good, that the things that are good for us as well, like the good food, the movement, the sleep, all those things. So but knowing our values is so helpful, isn't it? And that takes a bit of work sometimes, and sometimes you need someone to sort of come alongside you and help you figure out what those are.
Because anything to do with this, like your values or your strengths, we just, as we grow up and as we go through school and college, uni, whatever, it's not something that gets taught to you. You don't, we look at skills, what can I do, and this is my job and this is what I do in my job. We never really look at ourselves as a person and get to know ourselves. And I think one of the things, again, I think has been kind of transformational in my journey is really sitting and getting to know myself properly, creating kind of that self-awareness of what is actually going on here. I know for a long time I was very much about trying to find a solution. What's the fix? Right, I feel tired, so what do I need to do? What supplements can I take? And it wasn't about adding more things into the mix. It was actually about taking things away and getting back to basics and looking at the root cause. And I think a lot of the time we don't have that self-awareness, or we don't create that space for that self-awareness. So then, how are we supposed to make those changes if we're just working on that perimeter rather than getting to the root cause? And I think that's where learning about things like your values, learning what your strengths are, that helps you figure out what direction you're moving and what you need, and the things that you love and enjoy and you're good at, you're naturally good at, which makes you feel good about yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I only did this a few years ago as well. I learned about my values. Like you say, it's not something that we were taught in school, but I've mentioned it once or twice before in the podcast, but there's a great free download you can get from Brené Brown, isn't there? The values exercise, which is just like a big list.
Yeah.
And the aim is to like try to narrow it down to sort of 2 or 3, which is not easy. And if you need a hand with it, just ask Beccy or me. We can guide you through it a bit, but it's such a powerful thing to do. It's just really helped me, and especially, like I said, in sort of freeing me up to know what to align myself with, what to say yes to, what to say no to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love how you focus on getting to know ourselves and what we need, and not what others tell us we need, not what, you know, social media tells us we need. That's another really powerful thing we can do. And I know today we're going to be focusing on sort of how we go about making positive change in our life as busy women, which I love. And I love that we're opening up space to chat about that, because I think out there's this sort of, there can either be pressure to accept ourselves the way we are and not want to change, or there can be pressure to completely change ourselves and look like other people do, like celebrities or, you know, influencers tell us. And it's finding that happy middle ground, isn't it? And do you think that all kind of connects back into what you're saying about knowing ourselves? Is that a sort of good place to start, would you say? If we do, you know, I think there is power in acceptance. It's so powerful to accept ourselves where we are at, but it's also okay to want to improve and change in a positive direction. So yeah, how do you think that relates to sort of knowing ourselves?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, in that there's power in, I want to say loving ourselves, but not loving ourselves in the way where we're like, oh, we're just the best and isn't everything great. It's just having that love for ourselves, that we are where we are, whether things are as we want them to be or whether we know we want changes. Just loving the fact that we've got to the place that we are. I think, you know, as a woman in her 40s, I reflect now on how difficult it is kind of growing up as a woman, going through like a corporate career as a woman, like getting to senior leadership positions as a woman, and you don't necessarily realize it at the time because you're in it. And I think part of this kind of acceptance is just actually thanking ourselves for all the hardships, all the things that we've gone through, you know, the prejudice we've had, the things that have been said, the things that we now know are unfair, because let's face it, we live in a very different world now, and things are not acceptable now that maybe were sort of 10, 15 years ago. And we've survived all of that to this point. And I think part of that is starting to thank ourselves and love ourselves for the fact that we've got to where we are. And now starting to step into the power of, well, actually, I want something different for myself. And that could be a fitness thing. It could be an aesthetics thing. It might be how you look. It might be the job that you do. And I think you're right in that social media now is supposed to be this place of positivity, but there's so much information out there. It actually just contradicts itself. So I think you could spend a day just going round in circles of, I need to be thinner, but if I want to be thinner, that means I'm vain and I'm not looking after myself, so I shouldn't be thinner. But I don't want to be fat. And depending on whose content you come up against, you just end up going round and round in circles. And I think it's great that we talk about these things more. I love the fact that we are so much more open about our mental health, our well-being, our goals, our desires, all of that. But unless we truly get to know ourselves, we don't know what is right for us. A lot of the information you see, or a lot of the information that gets kind of parroted back to us, is from well-known names or celebrities, or, you know, big people with like a lot of influence on these platforms. And there's a lot of truth in what they're saying. But they're also coming at it from a point where, you know, they're probably multimillionaires. They probably have staff. They probably aren't working a 9-to-5 job and are juggling life and work and kids. And it sounds so simple. And some of these things, like just 5 steps you need to take, and it sounds so simple, but it might not work for you. You know, the people talk about the perfect morning and getting up at 5 a.m. It doesn't work for everyone. Some people are better in the evenings. So all of these things, I think I like to read what people are saying. I'll listen to some of the audiobooks, but I take the bits that work for me and create my own version, create my own routines. And the important thing for me is that changes as well. It's not one routine that I stick with all year round. It changes based on what I need from that time of the year, depending on how busy I am. It changes to make sure it reflects what I need in that moment.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we need to change depending on what's going on with us, depending if we need something a bit fresh. Like I talk a lot with my coaching clients, you know, a lot of time they might feel shame because they've tried a diet, then they've stopped. We don't like diets anyway. We try and get away from all that. But I think there's nothing shameful in that. We all sort of crave novelty, and we also have our lives change. So there's nothing wrong with switching things up. And I guess a lot of that does come from knowing where you're at, what season of life you're in, what's going on. But yeah, I want to talk about that more, but I just want to share something quickly that was just funny that I heard yesterday. We had a Mother's Day panel at church, and they had these 3 mums on the stage, and they were lovely, they were great, and they were sharing about motherhood and being a woman. And someone asked them, you know, how do you do it all? How do you juggle kids and work and having some quiet time, you know, like to read or pray? And I just thought, you just wouldn't ask a man that, would you? Like, you wouldn't have to even ask how do they fit in something for themselves. And there's still a lot of imbalance. I think there's still a big mental load we're dealing with as women. There's a lot of expectations on us. So the struggle is real. We get it.
There is a huge amount. And I think I've started to see a backlash against some terminology as well, because I think as women, we all talk about imposter syndrome, and it's just my imposter syndrome. And I actually feel like we're in a place now where we've got women doing incredible things, and the vulnerability to say you have imposter syndrome is great, because I love that honesty. I love that vulnerability. But I often don't think people do have that imposter syndrome. And I think there's kind of that narrative at the moment that we should play up our imposter syndrome, and we should talk about it as like, oh, but it's not imposter syndrome. Maybe you're just not as confident, or maybe actually you're exhausted and you haven't prepped as much because you've been doing whatever you were doing. The kids were a play, and you've come into this and you feel like, I would like to be a little bit more prepared. I actually heard, so I went to an event last week in Glasgow, and someone spoke and they said, when I hear the term imposter syndrome, I just think it means that you have an awareness of the things that you don't know. And if you don't have imposter syndrome, then maybe you just don't have that awareness. And I think that stuck with me for women as well, because I think we become so aware or so worried about what's going on because we're controlling so many different things, that we see the gaps that we maybe need to fill, the gaps that we can't do, and then we put that back on ourselves. And it isn't for us to fix everything. Not everything should be on us. And I think that's part of this journey that we've come a long way as women in business, as just in life, and you know how we're seen and considered in society, but there is still a long way to go. And I think some of that is society needs to change, but some of it is for us to understand and believe in ourselves that little bit more, that we don't get caught up or allow people to kind of bring us back down again.
Yeah, I almost feel we have to make excuses or share our flaws to be relatable. Actually, it's okay to step into our greatness and shout about our skills and strengths. Yeah, almost like, we're building excuses to not allow ourselves to shine as brightly as we can, because that's what we think is expected. We shouldn't be too confident or stick our head above the crowd. But come on, we need women to do this. Step into their greatness. The world needs us to.
No, and I think, I'm very honest. I will tell you about all the things that I've done there where I've messed up, but I do it in a way that doesn't change who I am, and it doesn't change who I think I am, and it doesn't make me think I'm any better or any worse than anyone else. It's just, this is the honesty, but I'm still going to go and do what I need to do. That has taken a time for me to get there, and I'm very aware of that. And that's taken time for me to build my confidence to be in that position. But part of that is that I've kind of sat back and done that work and got to know myself and got to like myself and started working in ways that work for me as well.
Yeah, our weaknesses don't take away from our greatness, do they?
No.
They're part of us, but we're still amazing.
Yeah, and that's the only way that we learn. Like, every mistake I've ever made, like at work, when I was in advertising, I've sent like huge ads out with no contact details on and things like that. I've never done that again. Because as soon as I've done that, that's in my mind, and it's like, you better check that, do not repeat that. And I think that's some of the things that is understanding that the mistakes that we make, the things that we do wrong, the failures, whatever we want to call them, they are part of the journey, and that's what's helping us build who we are. And some of those mistakes, I'm never going to do it again. Some of them, it's because I shouldn't be doing that. I'm not interested in that. That's not my strength. go and work in the area that is my strength. And it's all of this learning that is part of the journey that gets us to where we can stand, I think, as confident women and have our voice and, take up space.
Definitely. Love all of that. So if we're on that journey, but we're not quite as far on, we haven't done all of this work that you're talking about, but we know we want to feel better, we want to do better. There's things we want to do, but maybe there's things holding us back. So there are positive changes we want to make, but there is all this noise out there. Maybe we've lost touch with ourselves a little bit. We don't really know ourselves. Kind of, where do we start? Where do we start making those changes, or what's going to help us?
Biggest thing I always say to people is slow down. Just slow down. We want to make these changes, and we're running at a speed, but we don't know what direction we necessarily need to go in. We might have a rough idea of the end goal, but we run at speed and then we miss things along the way. So I always say the best thing we can do is slowing down, because slowing down helps us actually speed up, but it speeds up and makes us more efficient. So if you're really focused on like productivity and things like that, it is the best thing that you can do. Slowing down and reflecting on your past, reflecting on the things that you loved, the reflection on the things that you didn't like, reflecting on the things now that make you feel good, and starting to work with that and thinking about what are the small changes you'd like to make, and like really tiny changes, because when we make these big changes, they feel too big, they can feel overwhelming. And if we don't get there quickly, then we feel like a failure and we want to stop, because that you have the excitement of, I've started something new, I'm going to make this change, or I'm going to quit my job, or I'm going to start a business. And that excitement is there and it's great. But then there's this, and then if you get to the end and you've succeeded and you know what your success looks like and you've got that, that's exciting. But then the middle bit just feels really messy, and that feels like, oh, I've not done it right, and I don't know where I'm going, and is this the right thing for me? And that's why I think the smaller steps that we take, the more manageable they feel. And then we start to build this momentum, and we start to build this confidence in ourselves, because we're hitting every goal that we set ourselves. And I think making it as small as possible and as easily accessible as possible is the first thing. The second thing is, you want to make changes. It's not about you doing it by yourself. I, for one, am surrounded by so many brilliant people that I can call on for different things. And it might be, I want to build a new routine going to yoga, so I find someone that I can kind of buddy with and do that with. Or, I've got a friend down south who does breathwork and yoga and meditation and things, and I check in with her on some things, and she's my goal for that. But then I might have someone that is into running and I can pick up with them. So it's finding the people around you that can support you in those things, because I think it is so important to have people that have a similar mindset to you, that you can ask advice from, that you can share in those moments where it feels hard, and they're maybe 2 steps on from you or 3 steps on from you. Maybe they've got some advice, maybe they can help and introduce you to people. I moved up to Scotland from Manchester in November last year, and I've had to put myself in a situation where I'm just asking people, and the amount of people since I've been up here, complete strangers, that in 4 months are now friends and that are introducing me to people and asking for things. I couldn't have done this move by myself. It has taken an army of people around me. And I think it's when we realize we don't have to do it all on our own, it doesn't take away from how brilliant we are. It doesn't mean that we haven't achieved it. It's much more fun if you have other people around you and supporting you.
Oh, it's so true. And that line you used, I couldn't have done this move by myself. That's so true in any area of life. If we want to move, we want to change, we want to grow, we want to move forward, we can't do it alone. There's time for solitude and reflection, as you preach also with your practices. But we really, I find in the work I do, the real transformation happens in community and connection. It's that mirror, it's those cheerleaders. And it's just much easier. It's really hard to affect change by ourselves if we don't have accountability and support. The statistics show, don't they, if we have goals and we share them and we have accountability, you're way more likely to reach them. Because it's so easy to not do it if it's just you that knows about it, isn't it?
We did a really lovely exercise. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So I worked at University in Manchester for 3 years, and it was all about personal character and personal development. And one of the exercises we did with the students is they all wrote their goals down, and then they put them into a box, and randomly everyone picked a goal out that wasn't there and just gave them a piece of advice of what would they do. And it was such a wonderful thing to get so many different perspectives from people, and to have your goal out in the open, and you didn't have to share, it wasn't the vulnerability, but so many people shared it and gave advice and thoughts. And I think that's the wonderful thing, like when you say when you've got that community, and I love that sense of community, that you've got people there that are just cheering you on no matter what, and you're doing the same for them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And yeah, I love especially women when they get together and encourage each other. That's kind of why I set up my coaching program, so we could just do the journey together, so it's not as lonely, and it's more fun, and you're much more likely to get to where you want to go, aren't you?
Yeah.
So going back to slowing down then, I know that you have all these beautiful practices. I've had the privilege of being on some of your rest sessions, and you also did a call for my coaching community on some sort of breathwork and meditation practices. So how, as busy women, what are your tips to help us even to start to slow down and find moments of peace in our busy days that are then going to help just open up space for us to get to know ourselves and dream and plan and all those things?
Yeah. So the reason I moved into that, so originally it was all going to be people development. And obviously the reason I moved into it was because I just found people were so stressed. And I've done yoga since my 20s. It's always been something off and on in my life, not going every single week religiously. I'll have times where I don't go, and then times when I'm absolutely obsessed with it. But what I always knew is that how yoga made me feel. So that's why I went back to training it. And I've always loved yoga, but sometimes struggled with the meditation side of things, being able to sit still for so long, because busy people have busy minds, and you've got a list of things that you need to do, and time's running away with it. One of the things that I started doing, and I have done it consistently, is just find 5 minutes myself on a morning, every morning. When I was back in Manchester, I used to get up and go and sit in the covered a little bit in my back garden, rain or shine. Sometimes I'd have my dry robe on, I'd be in my pajamas, and I'd sit and I'd have a cup of tea, and I'd do that every morning. Now, some mornings I'd get up and jump into the ice bath because I had one of those and I loved that. Sometimes I'd be sat inside, but it was about creating that space that was non-negotiable for me, just to have a sense of calm before the day started and before life got hectic. Before that, I used to be very much, I'm tired, I'll get up, grab my breakfast and run out the door. And that was the worst start to the day. So the moment I started making that space for myself, things started to shift, because it gave me a slower start to the day. It felt like I'd given myself a gift, but I had the flexibility to do with that what felt right in that moment. And that is one of the biggest things I'd say to people, is finding that time. And it can just be 5 minutes. It could just be the 5 minutes. That's all you need. And that became my space for kind of meditation. I do meditation. I'm sometimes not very good at it because my mind is really, really busy. That sitting for 10, 15, 20 minutes can feel like a real challenge. And even with my training, it was start with 2 minutes and then build yourself up, because it's a practice. And I think just creating that space where you can commit that time to it, and then you might make it that little bit longer, and then you might make it that little bit longer. But it's that time where you're not doing anything. You're not doing a job whilst you're sitting. The most I did was sit and drink my cup of tea, and that was it. And sometimes I might have some beautiful music on in the background. Sometimes I might just sit and listen to the birds, but it was just the commitment of that space. And that is the one thing that I have consistently done. Even when I moved up here, it changed spaces. And, when it's miserable outside, I haven't gone outside this time, but I've created that space that I consistently give myself.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at it, like this gift you're giving to yourself. And I think you do that so beautifully. You give this gift to other people of rest and knowing ourselves better, but it's something we can start to give ourselves. And we are all busy. This is a podcast for busy women, but I think we can all find 5 minutes if we're honest with ourselves. And
I think that's the thing, because I know for me sometimes, like especially at the end of the day, I've got great intentions in the morning, and then by the time I've finished working and I've maybe got the train home, and then I get in and I think I've got an hour, and that I've got to eat dinner and get changed and then get to a class. And sometimes that feels overwhelming in the moment. And then if I don't go to a class, then you think, oh, well, I can't keep anything up. I'm not being consistent. So it's about creating something. And again, it goes back to knowing what works for you and knowing what works for you in the moment. And at the moment, if I'm really busy, I need to find what can I commit to and what is a non-negotiable, and making it really easy that you keep that commitment. On those times where, you know, life's a lot quieter and I might want to go and have an indulgent hour, that's great, but it doesn't always need to be that hour. If that hour is going to stress you out, you'll go and do something lovely, do a lovely yoga class, but that drive home, you might stress you out by all the things that you've still got to do. Just make it half an hour, do an online class, sit for 10 minutes, sit and read, but create that space that works for you.
You know, something about doing it at the start of the day, I think, that just sets you up. And I think you're then more likely to then want to go and do more through your day, like another half an hour yoga, maybe another meditation at night time. But if you don't get it in, I think you're so right. The day will just go. I recently started doing kind of what you're saying. So getting up a little bit earlier, doing 5 minutes reading, 5 minutes meditation on my phone, and 5 minutes like a gratitude journal. I went to see Dr. Chatterjee last week in Sheffield. He was on a speaking tour and he challenged us all to do this. Just implement 1 5-minute practice in your day for 7 days. Make that commitment to yourself. And as I've done it for the last week, and your whole day just goes better, doesn't it? Yeah. And I think something also he said is there's something about making that commitment to yourself. And then if you do it for 7 days, you're really proud of yourself and you start to trust yourself more. You start to have more self-worth and confidence in yourself that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So it's almost like that foundation, that little building block. If you can start with something 5 minutes a day, it's something to then kind of build on. But it's also the start of that gorgeous journey of getting to know yourself by just opening up that little bit of space to hear your thoughts and connect with yourself, isn't it? To then know what your goals are, know what positive changes you kind of want to make. So it's just a beautiful place to start that we can all kind of implement.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's about making everything as simple as possible. Mm-hmm. And whether that's, you've got big goals that you want to achieve, companies you want to start, wellbeing practice, whatever area, make it as simple as possible. And I think it's so easy to overcomplicate everything now. If you look, there is an app and a platform and a ring and a patch and everything for everything that we do. And then we don't actually have control over our lives because we're looking for, well, what's the app telling me today? Mm. What is in my diary today? How has it been organized for me? And we take away all that responsibility and that accountability for ourselves. And I think if we start small and we get back to really simple things, we know what we need, then we can start to introduce these things that actually, you know, I know exactly what works for me and I can introduce this because it's just going to make things that little bit easier, but not introducing them because we're trying to do a million things at once and we want to go far and fast and quickly. It comes back to just simplify it. I think as human beings, we are incredible in the knowledge that we have and the power that we have inside of us, and we don't embrace it. We look to an app, or, you know, we look to all these external things and we don't just embrace what we already have and what we already know. Because I think a lot of the time we can do these things and it's like, if we look back, we're like, oh, it hasn't actually told me much that I didn't already know, but I trust an external thing more than I trust myself. So true. We're outsourcing our well-being, aren't we? When actually we know ourselves best and we have what we need in ourselves. And like you said at the start, it's all that noise. We get confused and we get paralyzed. But I love what you just said, if we embrace what we already have and know, just shut that noise out, make that quiet space for ourselves, and then make the changes in community. It's such a simple, powerful way to go about it, which gives us that inner peace because we're not overwhelmed and stressed by all the chaos and noise around us. So good. I think it is. It's just taking it down, focusing on the simple things and focusing on less. One of the things that I always say to people when I started training in yoga, and I say to people, I'm putting a class on, do you want to come? I did a load of free classes during my training. And I always used to get this, oh, I can't do a handstand, or I can't touch my toes. And what I'd found in my yoga training is that since I started training to be a teacher, I try so much less than I used to, because I realized that's what it's about. It's not about, can I do a position? How bendy am I? How I just grab the props and have a really nice time. And I enjoy it so much more than I ever did. And so the opposite has happened to what everyone thinks. They think I'm this yoga teacher that's really bendy and can do everything. I'm like, whoa, 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 no, we're going there to have a nice time. And people don't expect that because they think whatever you do, you've got to do more and more. And actually that's taught me to do less. I do so much less since I've been doing that. I've learned to just do less. And life is way more enjoyable that way.
Oh, well, life is so chaotic. We need these simple things to just balance it out, don't we? And when we enjoy it, like you're talking about, that sounds so refreshing the way you're saying it, but also when want to do more, like I found it hard getting up earlier and doing these practices, but what I find is like I want to stay in that bubble. I want to like keep doing it. And if you make it enjoyable, like say simple, easy to do, don't overcomplicate it, then we're going to just want to keep doing them, aren't we? It makes us come back to it. It makes it something that we can maintain and continue with, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's so true, because I found the yoga journey was really interesting for me, because obviously I went into it more wanting to get the breathwork side of things to bring into my work. But it was the community I found. I was doing online teacher training, and there was such a community that when I finished in November, I missed it so much that there was just this, had the most hectic year with moving and getting married. And that became my rock. But it wasn't the yoga, it was the community and it was people. And then I finished and I got into this year and I was like, I'm really, really missing it. And I've gone back to train. I don't need to train. I'm a qualified teacher. I'm not currently teaching anywhere. So I'm not training to become a better teacher. I'm retraining because of the community it gives me, but also being on those sessions, how it makes me feel. And that is my place where I'm grounded and I feel great and life is wonderful. And it's like that fuel. And I think there's that other thing, that sometimes these things that we do, they don't have to be about anything bigger other than it's a space just to enjoy. I may never teach a yoga class again, but I'd still keep signing up for these trainings because they're just like, they make me feel brilliant. And again, I think society, the way we have it, we've always got to be achieving something for a reason, and the side hustle, or there's money involved in it. And no, I think just having these practices and having these spaces that just are great for us and feel wonderful it's so refreshing for me to do that. And I think everyone should have access to it.
You're so right, like doing something for the sake of it, not because of like a goal or a status thing. That's so good. And that comes back, you're there because you know that's what you love and what gives you life, isn't it? Because you've done that work to figure out what that is. So that's why you return to that. That's so good. And I feel like there's literally another 50 questions I could ask you because it's so good, but I kind of don't want to overcomplicate it or take up too much more of your time, because I love that you've given us just a couple of really simple takeaways that we can go away and think about. And that is to slow down and don't go alone. Like, I think if you just get that from this conversation, that's such a great place to start this journey of connecting with yourself and working towards the changes that you want to make that are right for you. And I think from what we're saying though, I think it'd be great to set a little challenge for those who are listening, the busy women that are listening, to just find something 5 minutes a day for the next 7 days that will help you slow down, whether it is a bit of breath work, listen to a guided meditation, write a gratitude journal. Just do it for 7 days, make that commitment to yourself and see how you feel. And I bet you'll want to do more.
Absolutely. And it's, none of this is signing up to apps. There's so much out there in free resources. Find a guided meditation where you just like their voice. Find something, but there's so much out there that's free. Even if it's sitting and listening to just a calm song that, they're all available on Spotify. Just listen to something and make it free and make it simple, but make it something that feels right to you and connects to you.
Yeah. You let us know how you get on. We'd love to hear how you get on doing that and what works for you, because you are so worth getting to know. You're amazing. And when you find out more about yourself, you'll just love yourself more and want to do more things that make you feel good. So embrace the journey.
It's a start, the small start, but it will grow into something amazing.
It will. It's got to be a small start. That's so good, Beccy. Like, I've loved everything we've chatted about, and it's just inspired me to keep going with my little daily habits. And I know you're working on some free resources and things as well, aren't you? So please tell us. I know lots of people listening would love to stay in touch and follow you and find out what other things you have to share. So where's the best place for us to do that, and where can we find you?
I am over on Instagram is probably the best place. So I'm under the Life Project on Instagram. And then I'm also about to launch a new wellbeing account on there as well, which is called Grounded. But if you find me on the Life Project, and then all my links are in there. And yes, I'll be releasing some breathwork, some guided meditations and things like that. I'm going to keep doing them quite regularly, so you get them that fit with the seasons and the time of year and whatever's going on at the moment. So hopefully you'll find ones that kind of sit and work really well for you.
Oh, they sound gorgeous. We're all about some seasonal well-being in this space, so they sound fabulous. And I'd highly recommend that you follow Beccy, because she's got a gorgeous account and you just give away loads of your wisdom and your thoughts, which is lovely. But you can find out more about the work you do there too. So thank you so much, Beccy. But before you go, we have to ask you the hardest question of all.
Yeah.
Which is, we love talking about food on this podcast. So if it was your last meal on earth, I think I prepared you for this. I hope I did. If not, I'm sure you can think of something. What would you choose to have for your last meal?
Do you know, this is probably the hardest question anyone's ever asked me, because there's so much that I want to say. And I was thinking about all these fancy things, and actually going back to basics, it'd be pie and mash and gravy.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the northerner in me, but yeah, one of my all-time favourite meals are pie. So yeah, if my last meal, pie, mash and gravy.
So Northern girl, classics.
Yeah.
Comfort food.
Yeah.
What kind of pie?
Probably cheese and onion.
Okay, all right. But lots of gravy.
Loads of gravy, really thick gravy, really buttery mash, all the things that, yeah, full indulgent.
Yeah, well, why not? It's your last meal, right?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much for your time, Beccy. It's been so good to chat today, and we'll be following your journey.
Yeah, it's been amazing being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening today. Remember, you can subscribe and share this episode with someone that you think might find it helpful. I'd love to stay in touch. You can find me over on Instagram at JoLiveLifeWell or at livelifewellness.co.uk, where you can find all the details of my coaching courses, workshops and retreats. Remember to keep looking after you, because you are precious and worthy of feeling amazing. See you all soon.